Hi and welcome back to another Gran Turismo livery editor video. This time we're looking at a concept for a McLaren Le Mans Hypercar for the new class. So we're using the Vision GT car to base the design on, as this probably relates closest to what teams are looking to run in the new Hypercar class. So looking at the Valkyrie, the Toyota, that sort of sculpted underfloor aero body, so I thought this was the best fit for the McLaren. So then going on to the design, we're looking at mainly incorporating an evolution of their design language from this year with that dash line effect, and I thought to take more inspiration from the Nike shirts usually seen in football over the last couple of years with this streaked effect, so really taking that element one step further. It's quite a tricky car to design around this one, with lots and lots of panel splits and elements separate to each other, so trying to find what surface to project on. You can see me a lot of the way through this, looking at what surface is what, where the lines will match up, so it's quite tricky. Not the best surfacing either for sponsor decals, as I started to work out once I'd done the main design, so you can sort of see here. Now just trying to match sponsors going through the car, looking at what their team are currently sponsored by, Formula 1, IndyCar, what might transfer over to a potential Le Mans effort. A little bit there, you saw me just play around with the orange colour compared to the new matte effect from the MCL 35 this year, just try and get that in, but I feel that papaya works much better on this car rather than the new orange and the new matte orange. So again, yeah, just adding some casual Le Mans details throughout the car, which can sort of ruin the design, but it's something you have to take into account, especially working on real world cars, how much of an impact series decals and sponsors have. And then of course the Mercedes input coming into F1 next year, I was wondering how that might tie into road car efforts, whether cost cutting measures might come in where McLaren do a similar deal to Aston Martin using Mercedes AMG on road car efforts, or whether the F1 entry might branch across to a potential Le Mans effort using their engines. So again, just prioritising McLaren sponsors and levels and priority areas, and just seeing how that might best integrate with the car and getting that real sense of, well, realism for the sponsor decals and how they'd prioritise them. We saw a little bit of difference between the Indy and the F1 sponsor levels, so something like that might happen in Le Mans, where different exposure levels per these events might come in, or new sponsors entirely, but I wanted to keep this just as real as possible, because you see a lot of concepts with huge Coca-Cola logos or new sponsors bought in, but I don't really see that happening, so I wanted to base this fantasy design as much as I can in realism. So again, here just looking at getting every single surface covered, what would go where, what would best fit where in terms of priority, where the sponsor commitments would place, and series decals as well, so like Michelin, it's something that you'd have to take into account, which is quite dominant on Le Mans cars. The Mercedes impact and what fuel supplies they might bring, you see that a lot in Formula 1, how engine suppliers tend to use their lubricants and fuel systems. So going with Petronas on this, and here we are with the final design renders. So photo mode in Gran Turismo is absolutely incredible. The HDRI impact and speed of rendering is really, really awesome. Up there with some of the top CAD programs I've used before. So that's it guys, so if you want to subscribe, like and leave any comments for what you want to see next.